listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome.
Good morning, afternoon, or wherever you are in this world. I thank you for being here today to listen to Second Wind again. You know, Second Wind is always for you. It's about your journey. It's about supporting you by giving you the best interviews we can, because that's where we create community and we get our support. So I thank you for being here today. It's very important. I like seeing you here, knowing you're out there listening. And also, I think you'll walk away with a little bit more knowledge that you can integrate into your daily life. So, shall we get started? Because you're going to love our guest today. His name is Dr. Joe Gallenberger. He is a clinical psychologist, trainer, and author with 30 years of experience as a therapist. In 1992, he began to investigate psychokinesis. Say that for me, Joe, please.
Psychokinesis.
Oh, good. That's so much better than what I was doing. But just for ease of speaking, we're going to call that PK as we go forward with our interview. This is the ability to influence matter using the energy of directed consciousness. Now, Dr. Joe is going to explain all that for us because it may seem a little strange, or just we never think about the power of our consciousness. Now, this is a unique energy, and it's useful in healing and manifestation. He has taught workshops such as the Inner Vegas Adventure, which is an adventure laboratory experience, which actually took place in Las Vegas. And we will give a little time to talk about that, where I also shared and learned from Dr. Joe. During his 30 years working as a trainer with Monroe Institute, he allowed him to create its popular MK2 program to teach PK energy healing and manifestation. He will be talking about his Liquid Luck meditation exercise and his book, Liquid Luck, the Good Fortune Handbook, which covers that these are the important ingredients: happiness, gratitude, compassion, praise, love, and feeling fortunate are essential to the power abundance creation. His book, Heaven is for Healing a Soul's Journey After Suicide, shows that all death leads to light. So with that's a lot. We're going to look forward to listening to Dr. Joe. So welcome, as always.
Thank you, Joyce. Good to see you again.
I think maybe it was 6-7 years ago that I interviewed you for the first time. And I was so excited about all your programs that I did join that 3-day experience in Las Vegas. And it was very interesting, very interesting. So tell me about, I always like to share with my listeners the defining moment. I mentioned it briefly, but you know, when you're experiencing it, it's so much deeper in your soul. So tell us about that defining moment that turned your life or opened a door or changed your direction.
I think probably, I was on track and as a clinical psychologist doing psychotherapy and discovering Monroe Institute. And going up there, the main thing people know the Monroe Institute for is a place where people go to see if they could have an out-of-body experience, this idea of your consciousness, apart from your physical body, so you can fly around the neighborhood and confirm later what you saw was actually there, those kind of things. But going up there, finding that what they did was much broader in an atmosphere of no dogma, which I found very unusual and unique and precious. You were able to explore your own consciousness, meaning your connection with spirit, your guides, your helpers, your own conscious and superconscious minds, and do that in an atmosphere of deep respect for whatever beliefs you carried in. So we had atheists and uh, highly fundamental religious and Republicans and Democrats, people from all around the world. And it was a small program. Each one has about 20 participants with very intense individual care for a week long with a brainwave technology that allowed people to move into deep meditative states within 10 minutes rather than 10 years
Yeah.
practice. And so that changed my clinical practice. I brought some of their tools in there to help people with things like anxiety and depression, but also began this journey with psychokinesis and looking at how we bring high energies of spirit into the physical and help us with manifesting, with healing, those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. I know that when I was at your workshops, the one in Las Vegas, that I bought several of your CDs, and I'm not sure that I was always able to get to the place of meditation. And when something like that happens, is it more of the exposure and repeated exposure that allows a person's heart to open up to such situations, or is it that there is something preventing me from opening up to the
Sure.
recording?
Well, it's been a while. Now those CDs are also on download, digital
I did
download.
date myself, didn't I?
And well, I usually use the word tape for tape players and things, so that really dates me. And we know, in my experience, it's never about deservingness or lack of talent. There is a need to devote time to it and do some practice. And that may be hard or challenging in a busy life. There can be other issues where if somebody's more in battle mode, say they're going through a divorce or they have 3 kids running around or they are a Vietnam vet with PTSD or things that would cause you to be guarded, it can be a little hard to open up. These things are best designed to listen to over headphones. They're
Right.
about 30, 35 minutes long. And most people, by most 95% or so, will at least feel very relaxed. And then it is a little bit like golf, some good shots, some not so good ones in terms of the very deepest states. One person may experience that every third or fourth time they meditate, somebody else 1 in 10, where they feel they, got to quote, see God or, go very deeply. So those are peak experiences in life, but they will tend to increase the amount of times that might happen, but surely not every time. So if you're very tired, you might just fall asleep, for example.
Right.
And if you are overdosed on caffeine a little bit, you might have trouble with the relaxing. So I don't know if any of that helps, Joyce, but
Well,
that's the context, I think.
yeah, but it is the repetitiveness that helps it.
Yes, and I have a home study course we'll probably talk about called Sync Creation, SYNC, CREATION, that's designed to go much deeper than these 30-minute exercises.
Yeah.
And so within that, there's 3 hours of coaching where we can individually and personally fine tune this stuff to a person. And there are a lot of tools to get rid of blocks in emotion or belief. So if somebody's carrying belief, it's a free choice universe in my opinion. So you're free to believe things such as no pain, no gain, nothing good comes easy.
Yeah.
And if you believe those, then it's going to be more difficult.
Yes.
Um, and if there are beliefs that I'm not deserving or that this is of the devil, or which sometimes comes up for people with religious backgrounds, all of those things may be the kinds of things that we need to, much like a kaleidoscope, sort of dial it in to see a pretty picture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, uh, but for most people, for example, liquid luck that you mentioned was designed
Mm-hmm.
for most people to be able to transcend their fears and their limits in belief pretty quickly by a vivid imagination scene within the meditation. In this
Mm-hmm.
case, being like a wizard or in like Harry Potter in his lab, creating a magical elixir that you fill with happiness and praise and gratitude and feelings of abundance, feelings of good fortune. And then whenever you want to have a good day filled with synchronicity, serendipity, things going your way, you just
Mm-hmm.
imagine taking a drink of this liquid. And for example, when that came out, we had reports of people winning $1,000 scratch ticket in the lottery 3 weeks in a row, selling houses in a day where they'd been on the market for a year,
Mm-hmm.
solving problems in engineering, having inventions, finding soulmates, all kinds of things broke through.
Mm-hmm.
They still may need to at some point deal with those underlying issues that might be generating fear. Most of what's in the way is fear based. So, Joyce, on my wall, my favorite saying I developed is fear is expensive, love is priceless, choose wisely. And in the last couple of years since we've met have been a challenging time in terms of fear with COVID,
Oh, yes.
politics, divisiveness with wars. And so some of the exercises like Ocean Heart are specifically designed to open the heart more easily than some of the earlier exercises I did, maybe like Liquid Luck, because I found
Mm-hmm.
it so much of a challenge for many people. So we
Yeah.
have a whole heart series called Forgiving Heart, Healing Heart, Ocean Heart, Abundant Heart that many people are able to open their heart easier on those. We've changed the
Mm.
brainwave patterning signals a little bit, made them a little more
Ah.
powerful, and also guidance verbally, even on how to open the heart. So that's in response to what's been going on for the last half a decade since we were together.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I was when I was preparing, I was digging out all those books that I knew I bought and all the series CDs that I bought. And I remember I have 4. So I have material there that I can go back and pick up on. But
Yes,
it's an easy, and they just go to your website, which is syncreation.com.
yes. So it's a little hard in verbally, but it's SYNC, like the word synchronize.
Mm-hmm.
That comes from synchronizing your hemispheres, which
Mm-hmm.
is part of the meditation process. And synchronizing yourself, body, mind, and spirit. So it starts SYNC, and then the word creation, CREATION,
Mm-hmm.
so double C in the middle there, .com. And there's a lot of free articles on tips to manifest or do energy healing, those things. And under products are all the CDs and downloads and the home study course. The
Mm-hmm.
Inner Vegas Adventure Workshop has been on hold during COVID, but we're hoping to start again in the fall. We did 99 of them, and we have a big
Wow.
100th one
Oh,
celebration planned, and that was March of what was that, 220?
2000?
Everything
Yeah.
shut down, so we're waiting until everything settles down again.
Yes. Well, you explain why you would say that fear is expensive. Why that statement is so powerful to you.
Um, I think we are naturally designed to be unlimited energy beings, getting our energy in unlimited quality and quantity directly from source.
Mm,
Um, to do that, we have to be very open and trustful. source is maybe God or beauty of nature, however you might define it. And when we don't get that energy, we're energy starved, and we try to get it from other people by getting their attention,
Yeah.
being the good boy, the good girl, the bad girl, the savior, the mess.
Mm-hmm.
And that energy is not as high a quality, and it can allow people to manipulate us. And it usually creates, first of all, an illusion of separateness from source. And within that separateness, then we begin to be fearful. Our egos worry about surviving. The culture can use fear very dramatically to sell us things. So if we fear, a fire week, they can sell us fire insurance.
Yes.
And if we don't smell right under the arms, they can sell us deodorant. So fear is a great tool for manipulators in the religious, educational, political spheres. So we have this around us. And, the news says if it bleeds, it leads. That as social creatures gets our attention. So fear, for the first way, it's just expensive, is it's highly distracting from who we really are, and highly muting of our creativity and our natural energy. I started when I was out in Vegas. I had fears when I went myself, fears of loss, fears of wind, fears of being, all kinds of ego fears. And it was like putting out brush fires. And then I realized, well, you could sing those dragons to sleep just by opening your heart and moving into a loving space. You can transcend fear, because you really cannot, love doesn't have an opposite. Hate's really not the opposite of love, but fear can cloud love. So the main goal of much of my material would be to allow that to dissipate the clouds, so we can see clearly, if you will, and feel clearly the lovingness that's flowing to us and through us. And this, when I say expensive, for example, one other pivotal event was my brother committed suicide back 25 years ago. And he was a good man, intelligent, hardworking, honest, all that stuff, skilled, but he couldn't find work, and his relationships and things didn't go well. And when I looked at his life, it was, how can bad things happen to good people? It seemed like he feared his own power, and he felt he was not deserving. So he feared that he was not deserving. And that was enough to block flow, enough to even end in a grisly type of end, at least the way we view it. So it can be very expensive. It can keep you from asking the girl out who could be the love of your life, or boy. It can keep you from going for that job that would be the best job in the universe for you. It can keep you from speaking your truth. And as a society, if we all don't speak our truth, then bad things happen at large levels, because most of us are silent. So I think fear is very expensive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I, at the beginning of the year, lost two very important people to me.
I'm sorry.
Like so many other people have also experienced. But it was I don't believe I'd ever grieved like that before. And when you go into grief, like I experienced, I just wanted to throw everything to the wind and start over with a clean slate. I know that doesn't sound very rational, but I did. I just reviewed, do I want to do this? I don't like doing this. I'm not going to do this anymore. So I went through my life just kind of picking out those things. And somebody said to me, well, Joyce, why don't you start writing? Put all this down on a piece of paper. So I did. And I just started to express so much. And it was just such a wonderful tool. And so was writing that book for you sort of healing as well for you in your brother's passing?
Yes, it was one of the reasons I uh, wrote it. Initially, there was a book I wrote called Brothers Forever that I wrote a couple years after his death. And then The Heaven is for Healing is my newer book. That's been after 25 years. What has he been doing on the other side, and how his death affected me here and my direction in life to look at how people manifest and those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the uh, it's interesting what when we study it, often the initial grief somebody has is fear-based, that they're aware of and afraid they will never see or contact that person again. Or if that person had gone
Oh,
to Europe for a year, you wouldn't be in grief. You might miss them.
right.
But it's and then what we tend to do is close our hearts. And when we do that, we feel cut off even more from source. Even I was fortunate. The beauty of nature and music seemed to pierce that grief.
Mm-hmm.
And the beauty of my daughter, who was maybe 5 or 6 years old at the time of his death,
Mm-hmm.
helped me have some lifelines in that. But it can feel very gray and isolated and cut off.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons I did the meditation called Ocean Heart. I realized I was functioning a year or two after his death, but I was closed off, and I didn't want to be closed off anymore. And I realized in our culture we have a myth of the broken heart. You know, if a loss is severe enough, it just breaks your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird because, you know, the heart keeps beating.
Mm-hmm.
And so I changed to an idea of an ocean heart, the idea of a vast ocean of love.
Yeah.
And much like water, if you, Joyce, wanted to come in my life and I would like you in it, it would be like your hand was being put in the water of my heart, fully enveloped without resistance. And
Yes.
if you got leave, it would be like pulling your hand out and the water goes back to complete, perhaps losing a drop. So because of that, I developed the exercise called Ocean Heart,
Mm-hmm.
where the image is that your heart is a vast ocean of love. And much like a big body of water, if a person was to come in my life and I'd like them in, it's like they're putting their hand in my water of my heart, if you will, and they're
Mm-hmm.
enveloped completely. If they leave, the water goes back to complete, perhaps losing a drop. And within that image of Ocean Heart, I've gone through the death of my mother and father, my other brother through ALS,
Oh.
without the same kind of grieving that was present with my brother Pete, that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
very, very difficult, savage kind of grief, agonized grief.
Yeah.
And so I put that out, and I put it out a little bit before COVID came along, and I've gotten many reports. It's helped people with the politics and the illness and stuff to not be in so much fear,
Yeah.
and this be open and compassionate with themselves and their families. So it's worked out pretty well as a meditation, as an antidote to the fears we were talking about.
Yeah. How can somebody know? It's like anything. I think if we stay in fear too long, we forget it's fear. We don't realize it's fear.
Yes.
So, how does one know that they have absorbed so much fear and their life is now shrinking because of their fear of fear?
That's an excellent question. We're defining fear as anything that clouds love. So that could be cynicism, depression, terror, anger.
Yes.
Like somebody cuts you off in traffic, many people's response they're first aware of is being angry with that person, wanting to flip them the bird. And but
Yes.
before that was a minute of fear where you thought you might be harmed or your car might be harmed.
Oh, yeah.
And so you flash from that to the anger. So if somebody has experienced a loss, for example, of a pet, let's say, and they
Mm-hmm.
find themselves wanting to sue the veterinarian, and this is a year later, you know, and feeling like a victim in some way of
Mm-hmm.
how the hospital treated a loved one during their illness, that would be a tendency to indicate that you might be stuck in a loop of anger covering the fears. Um, because it can be terrifying to know we don't have full control. Um,
Yes.
and so, if you're not feeling good, you're probably in some kind of fear.
Really.
Um, Usually, I mean, if you hit your toe with a hammer, you're not going to feel good for a minute or two,
Right.
but it should go away pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, it is so subtle, I think. I am experiencing where I live in Tyler, Texas, uh, not a very it's a nice East Texas town. Used to be slower, but we're growing so fast, it's moving faster and faster. But I noticed just in driving, the there's far more aggression in driving now than there used to be. I mean, uh,
Yes.
faster, less consideration for other people on the road. I walk my dog. I mean, they're traveling fast by me. And it's just I just feel that. It's does are you experiencing that in the
Yes, I
area where
think,
you live?
starting from the divisiveness in the last presidential election,
Yes.
moving into COVID, we've gotten very divided, and both sides are saying if we listen to the other, the world's going to come to an end, basically.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
within that, it's generating tons of fear. So people are, the unpleasantness on planes. I'm a million miler with Delta, and I've flown a lot of other airlines as well.
Yeah.
And I never experienced this kind of, people punching each other on planes and
Oh
and
no.
and things. So yes, aggression is one of the, fear creates flight or fight.
Mm-hmm.
So some people have gone into depression, which is kind of anger turned inward
Mm-hmm.
and feelings of loss turned inward, and they've done the flight thing. Others have gone into the fight
Mm-hmm.
and response, which is useful if you're fighting a tiger. You should be afraid if a tiger's coming toward you, and you either flee or you punch the tiger in the mouth. So, but chronically, we're not built for that. We're built for it to be a 5-minute event that we survive, hopefully. And we're not built really well for long range. Having that button pressed every single day, be careful, be
Yes.
afraid, be afraid. And so we are even hormonally, psychoneuroimmunology is a big word. That
Mm-hmm.
means how our immune systems are affected by stress,
Yes.
including this. So even our ability to fight off a virus changes with whether we're under fear chronically or not, and
Yeah.
it deteriorates. So that's another way fear is expensive. It's expensive physically on our bodies, biologically.
Well, I keep thinking trust. Is trust the brokenness of our trusted society that we live in now? We don't trust anybody. And so is that tagged on to fear as well?
Yeah. So the antidote, if I say open your heart, that's hard to do if you're in a stress response, anger response, fear response.
Yeah.
So we slow down and we first relax. That's the first part of almost all of these meditations.
Right.
And then moving into looking at what is going well. So when we talk about abundance and gratitude, uh, we might have to pull back if we right now are out of a job and, a number of things like that, to looking at the miracles of beauty in nature, the miracle of the human hand,
Yep.
the beauty and the miracle of your grandkids or children, pets, music, something that allows you to begin to feel abundant again,
Mm-hmm.
and that there is a flow of good energy coming toward you, at least in the form of beauty, let's say.
Right.
And then from there, you begin to build some gratitude in, which is a great antidote toward fear and anger and those things, for what you do have. And then if you want to manifest the new job or better health or whatever it is, it's like the cherry on top of the sundae. You're coming from a place of abundance and you're adding more to that rather than coming from a place of, oh my God, everything is broken and everything is going wrong. If you try to create from that area, you usually will create more difficulty. Um, and so the trick is to, in some ways, not believe all the illusion, that we hear all the negative stories. Um, my wife was once at the beach. She takes a trip once a year. She calls it goddess trip with her three best girlfriends.
Yes.
And they looked out in the surf, and this was on the coast of North Carolina, and there was a guy drowning out there. And they ran up and down the beach, got 20, 30 strangers together, dog leashes, towels, and formed a human chain out to him. And the people at the deepest part of the chain closest to him didn't even know how to swim. They just jumped in and volunteered to do that, and they brought him in to the relief of his children and his wife who had been watching this happen. And that never made the papers. And there's thousands of events a day, in small and large. The smile in the grocery store that you didn't deserve, but somebody just smiled at you, to somebody caring for someone else, and instead we hear the bad stories. So on those planes that we see somebody punching, there's also somebody holding somebody's hand who's afraid of flying, somebody helping the older person with their luggage, many different things. But so it's all skewed. Joyce, we actually, right now in our culture, there's less people at war than ever in our history as a human race. There's less conflict. There's less starvation. There's less of all these things that often we go, oh my God, things are falling apart. So we have to realize that the story is quite distorted. One thing people can do immediately is stop watching news for 5 hours a day, because it's very distorted. And begin to take their will and willfully notice the beauty in a daffodil, rather than think, oh, another darn weed in my lawn. Not daffodil, dandelion is the word I was looking for. And so we can, with our conscious attention, direct it toward that which feeds us better. And meditating every day since COVID started, my wife and I pretty much about 4 o'clock each day, we meditate for about an hour. And then we agree not to watch the news and talk about negative stuff after that. And so each day we can calm down and reset. That tends to increase the quality of sleep, which then increases the chances of having a pleasant dream rather than an unpleasant one. So all that positive cycle. And we watch who we associate with. Even in our own family and many people's families in the United States now, there's divisiveness. And you're never going to convince the other side. But rather than, constantly throw energy at that, you might have to agree to disagree about what to talk about, what not to talk about. And, most families, you can agree that your grandkids or a wedding or whatever is joyful, and avoid some of the stuff where it just creates more feeling of isolation.
Yeah. I, after 3 years, am going to take a trip.
Oh, congratulations.
I'm really excited about this. And it's to Scotland. And so when visiting the itinerary that they sent me, I made the decision I could not climb what they wanted me to climb. And I thought, I have got to do something. So it was because I wanted the trip to Scotland so badly, it influenced me to go to the gym, to start all this positive stuff that I needed to do a long time ago. I just haven't. And so it's just amazing in that month since I got the word that I must start climbing hills, how my attitude has just changed, my whole reflection. Yes, we're smiling because we don't have the mask on anymore. I smiled under all my masks for 3 years, but nobody could see them.
Yes.
So anyway,
I'm really happy for you. My wife just got back from a trip to Iceland to see the Northern Lights, and she got to see them, and she was so happy. And she came back so renewed, you know. So I'm glad you have something like that in line for yourself, you know, and have the gratitude. And you're right. Things like eating well,
Hmm.
getting walks out in nature,
Hmm.
exercising, picking up something new, dance, playing the guitar, whatever it is. All of
Hmm.
those things, you know, we started responding, you know, by washing every vegetable that came in the house with COVID, right?
Yes.
And it was not
Yes, we did.
sustainable.
Yeah.
And the state of being in leeriness is not sustainable. So
Yeah.
you decide what a level of risk you're willing to accept. It's
Hmm.
easier if you do believe you you know are more than your physical bodies, and you'll continue to exist even if you have no longer have a body. Um, but most of us can get to a place where we can shake a lot of this off, start doing good for other people, volunteering to do something.
Yes.
All of that are great antidotes to the feeling of being paralyzed.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I am a week away from this exciting departure, and I'm having such scary thoughts about what if I don't know how to change planes? I mean, that's basic, right? Really
Yeah,
basic. And I'm like, oh, come on, girl. You know better than that. So anyway, you just have to call yourself out of it at times, I think.
yeah. And
Enough is
you
enough.
can, you know, our rational mind is good at that. You know, what if you miss your plane? You get the next one. You know,
Yes.
those kinds of thoughts, when they come up, just it's fine to
Right.
argue with yourself and say, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? And usually
Yes.
it's something like, I'm going to be 3 hours late.
Yeah. Well, I want to sort of talk about I that 3-day workshop that I did with you in Las Vegas. That was so clever that you organized that. And what was the whole thought behind that workshop that
Well,
you're
I
going to
had,
plan to do again?
yes. So I had done this psychokinesis we talk about.
Hmm.
In psychokinesis, your intent is like the steering wheel of a car. It sets the direction you want to go.
Yep.
And then the energy flows through your heart is the strongest energy. And what we mean by that is things like growing seeds in our hand, where we get root growth of 1.5 inches long in 2 or 3 minutes, lighting light bulbs with our energy. We've measured 400 volts off our hands, bending metal that you could not bend with physical strength,
Yeah.
rolling dice in patterns, affecting slot machines. And
Hmm.
so initially, I went to universities to be studied as a subject in this and
Hmm.
came out knowing this is real and I could do it at, you know, 100,000 to 1 by chance. So, you
Hmm.
know, they put a new drug out if it's 100 to 1 by chance.
Hmm.
And then I wanted to get a black belt in PK. And Vegas turned out to be ideal because the feedback is so quick and we
Yes.
know the exact statistics of dice and slot machines, and we know that they are not messed with because the state regulates gambling very strongly.
Hmm.
So when we went out, I went out there individually. I found on dice I could roll, say, 9 nines in a row. Statistically, that's very unusual. And if you could
Really?
do that, you could get paid money.
Hmm.
So yeah, after doing it for about a year myself and finding it so positive, I
Right.
developed the Inner Vegas Adventure workshops. And the goal was to bring people out and show them how their consciousness could affect reality. And as you remember, when we go around the table, we aim for a state where we are wide open heart, grounded to the earth, meaning powerfully being in the present moment, happy to
Hmm.
be there, connected
Hmm.
with spirit. And when we do, we get rewarded with money within minutes or seconds.
Yeah.
If we go into greed, fear, ego, the money gets withdrawn because the PK goes away. And so it trains you very quickly into a more enlightened way of living, which we're talking about today. And the dice and slot machines and the money are very good at bringing up these issues of deservingness and performing in front of others and all kinds of things that might provoke fear. So it
Hmm.
gives you practice in handling that. And we've had things like I'll go and say, gee, I'd like a royal flush in hearts on a slot machine. I know that's 160,001 by chance and hit it in the first pull. And when
You
you do,
did?
Yeah.
Oh my,
And then
really?
now over the years, it's been 15 times of those things. And so
Wow.
that consistency really takes you from a belief that maybe I'm powerful to a knowing. And
Hmm.
people in the Vegas workshop would wake up pain free from post polio syndrome, first time in 20 years. Um,
Really?
we would see the healing, we would see the manifesting. Um, and and so it became a great place to practice that yoga over a few days. We meditate out there. We prepare a little bit beforehand with a manual. I interview everybody on the phone before going. I don't want somebody to be in greed or
Oh,
need their next month's rent on their house.
yes.
But given you can use the money as just the sand of the sandbox we're playing in, we bet small amounts, as you remember, $2, $5,
Hmm.
and you can begin to see these principles we're talking about today in operation.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a wonderful experience. Just the unity of the group working around the table. And it was just,
We have a lot of fun. I'm glad you
yeah,
enjoyed it.
I did. I thought it was a great experience. Yeah. So we're getting close to the end of our hour, but have we discussed, or 50 minutes, have we discussed the connection with unlimited energy being directly with source?
I think so, a little bit. Again, that's easier said than done. And so, when I'd like to leave people with the idea, if they'd like to explore this more, go
Uh-huh.
on the website synccreation.com, and for less than $20, you can get a download of something like the Healing Heart, which is
Mm,
designed to heal into full potential, body, mind, and spirit, not just a sore knee. Works
mhm.
for a sore knee, but it can help you heal fear or whatever it might be there. Get Liquid Luck if you're inclined to do that. That comes as a download or a CD as well as the book, and just begin to have a taste of this. If you already know you want to go deeply into this, the Sync Creation Home Study course comes with the 3 coachings with me and many meditation exercises. And it comes with its own dice to roll, spoons to bend, and seeds to grow in your hand. And it's a great thing to do if you want to go very deeply into this and really make major
Yeah,
changes.
right.
So that be some ways people could tap into this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was just fascinating all that you've all that I've experienced with you. I know through that I think I went 2, 3 times with you on that trip to Las Vegas. Um, but and look forward to it coming back on the calendar. But I usually like to close my shows with a couple of questions. So may I ask you
Sure.
these? Are you up to it? Okay. What was the most important action that you needed to face before you transition through your fear? You yourself. I know you're a teacher of fear.
I think I had to move from relying only on myself, meaning I
Mm-hmm.
kept it all to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't really, once in a while I might say, God help me, but I wasn't real serious that anything would happen that way.
Yeah.
And to begin to share with others, speaking the truth with that, and to begin to, so for somebody that may be psychotherapy or counseling, depending on what's going on, might be talking to a good friend or minister. It might be reading books or going online, but looking outside yourself for some of the inspiration. So if somebody said, gee, my fear is to the point where I have panic attacks. You can now easily go online and Google panic attacks, and a bunch of things will come up that will be helpful, including support groups.
Yeah.
Um, and so if you can move from I'm alone to, hey, I'm an immortal being connected to all of the universe here, and there's tons of help pouring toward me, that can help handle the fears a lot better, I think, more
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah. Now, with your career, it's been amazing reading and knowing all the things that you've been able to do. What has been the best success, and what do you consider is success? I'm sorry, that's two questions. Um, so how do you measure your success, and what would you consider the most successful thing that you've done?
My measurement, I think, would be the quote from the author Emerson.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about, I'm not going to do it exactly, but the idea, if you leave the world a better place than when you came, that and people's lives a little easier, that's a great definition of success.
Right.
And that's been a driving goal for me. A big step was when I stopped relying on myself and also began other people. You know, if you write a book, you have the publisher, the publicist, the art cover designer, the this and the that, and the person that cuts the trees to make the paper. It's a team of hundreds of people. As you begin to realize that, it begins easier to allow the energies coming to you to come through you to have greater impact.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one way I measure my success is I get emails now still daily where somebody was savaged by grief in India when their child committed suicide. They find my book and they find it was very consoling, where
Yeah.
nothing else, quote, had moved them. Folks that, report back to me that some of the work I've done has touched them deeply. That gives me really high degree of satisfaction. I also opened myself enough with enough courage to engage with and marry my soulmate. And I consider that a success in the area of relationship.
Yeah.
And I have the good fortune not to worry about where tomorrow's money is coming from for dinner.
Yes.
And so that is good. As a male, being a provider seems to be one of our programs to provide for ourselves and those we love. But the success is mainly, that I'd get very strong feedback that I have touched lives positively.
Yeah.
And
That's a good
that's
feeling.
deeply satisfying.
Yes, yes, it is. Well, I thank you very much because you've touched my life.
My
And I
pleasure.
appreciate the interview and just your work, I'm in awe of you. I'm sorry. That's the truth.
Well, thank you, Joyce.
All right.
It has
So
been great to talk with you again, and I hope your trip is fabulous, and you'll email me, let me know how it went. Scotland is on my bucket list. So,
Oh yes. Well, I'm really looking forward to it. So I will be happy to share what I've learned. There's so much
okay.
to learn over there. A lot.
Yes,
So may take 2 or 3 trips.
that's right.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joe. It's been great to visit.
You're welcome, Joyce. Have a great day.
Bye. Now, remember, I always like you to share what you've learned today. Share the program. Share with a friend that needs your help, a friend that needs to make a decision that's very difficult. This is how you can help and pull your community together. This is how you can support other people in your community to give them the peace and whatever they need for their journey. So thank you for being here today. I look forward to next week when we'll share more time together. And I hope you have a great week. Thank you for being here.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.